Welcome to the Professional Troublemaker podcast. This is the place where we help you cultivate the courage, authenticity, and audacity you need to use your voice, take up space, and live a life that is so bold, even your wildest dreams say goals. I'm your host, Luvvie Ajayi Jones, New York Times bestselling author, sought-after speaker, and side-eye sorceress, bringing you thought-provoking conversations with amazing people who have taken action and have consistently showed up with the courage and confidence they needed to become the fear fighters they are today. Like the late, great John Lewis said, these are the kind of people who are never, ever afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. Before we jump into today's interview, know that this podcast is named after my second New York Times bestselling book, Professional Troublemaker, The Fear Fighter Manual, which is available now wherever you get your books. With this book and with everything that I do, I am on a mission to help 1 million people live audaciously. To do that, they must fight their fear. So think of it, 1 million people who are out there standing on the edge of something great and need that little push of encouragement. That push to be the domino, to say the hard thing, to have the hard conversation. 1 million people kicking their fears to the curb and stepping into the life that they've been dreaming of. 1 million people asking for a raise. 1 million people, starting a fierce job that they're not sure they're ready for. 1 million people doing something that feels so big that their wildest dreams say goals. My goodness. So that is what writing this book has done for me. What it's already done for those who are reading it and gifting it to others. This book has empowered people to say yes to things that they were previously saying no to. It's empowered people to have tough conversations they weren't gonna have before. People have asked for raises and promotions and gotten them after reading this book and finding the courage to speak up. The domino effect of what has been happening when a few people have decided not to live in the realm of fear has been amazing. Think of what could happen if 1 million people stop letting fear be the first factor in their decision-making. An audacious mission like that can't happen without you. So let's get this book in the hands of as many people as possible. Buy a copy of Professional Troublemaker for yourself or as a gift for your friend who needs a push. I know it'll change your life like it's changed mine. And I know it will change lives of all these people who touch it because domino effects are real. Professional Troublemaker, which is available in hardcover or audiobook, I narrated it, and ebook, is now at professionaltroublemakerbook.com. Order it there or wherever you buy your books. I'm excited to share this episode with you. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to be a guest on Elizabeth Gilbert's Onward Book Club that she holds each month on her Instagram Live. Elizabeth created the Onward Book Club as a way of spotlighting, studying, and celebrating the work of Black female authors. And I was honored to be her guest in April because she wanted to feature Professional Troublemaker, the Fear Fighter Manual. During our conversation, we talk about my grandmother and why her story and spirit are so integral to the book. We talk about drawing boundaries around what is sacred and why Liz and I mutually don't believe in the concept of fearlessness. Also, we have a really good piece where we talk about why we have to dream audaciously, like these mountain-sized dreams, not mattresses. So let's jump in. Hi.
Hi, beautiful. All right, I'm turning off the comments so we can see your gorgeous face. Oh my God. So you're just gonna look like this? This is what it is, and the rest of us have to just look like this?
Listen, I just put on lipstick. I didn't put on my I feel like I'm gonna put on my really good lipstick for you.
Thanks, I'm deeply moved. I've seen your video of how fast you can get ready for an Instagram interview with your blazer on the back of the chair and your lipstick at the pocket and the hat.
That's what I just did.
All right, hang on a second, because I have a costume change. Ooh. I have an honorary, I'm interviewing Luvvie today costume change. I got my Luvvie sunglasses.
Yes.
I got my Luvvie hat.
Yes.
I got to wear it a little farther back of my head, though, so that it looks like the way you wear it. All right, yeah, and I have my Luvvie intro. You ready? Here we go. I'm so happy to see you. I'll take this nonsense off in a minute, but this is just my way of telling you how much I love you. Here we go. Luvvie Ajayi Jones is a star. She is the New York Times bestselling author of 2 wildfire memoirs and life guides, I'm Judging You, The Do Better Manual, and Professional Troublemaker, The Fear Fighter Manual. Both New York Times bestseller, #1, Amazon bestseller, Washington Post bestseller. She's a superstar blogger, an activist, a marketing wizard, an internationally respected expert on the very serious subject of shoes. She is a voice of truth who is not afraid to speak publicly about the life-changing power of shea butter, which I also have with me as my prop. She is the owner of perhaps the most enviable pair of cheekbones the world has ever seen. She's a compelling and hilarious podcaster, an Oprah Winfrey Super Soul 100 All-Star, unchallenged heavyweight, multi-time world champion of the side eye, a TED speaker whose talk has inspired millions, a social media presence beloved by her army of Love Nation, and a critic of the status quo whose very existence strikes terror in the collective guts of the mediocre. Born in Nigeria, forged in Chicago, a true global citizen, the leader for our times, Luvvie!
I might have to change my actual official bio to that. I might get that transcribed and be like, this is my new bio, because that is epic.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Please do.
And the reason first of all, welcome, and how are you? And where are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am in Chicago at home, in my home office. And listen, you are the last person I am talking to before I go on break.
Good.
Like I'm taking a 2-week break at the end of April, because you already know book launches suck the soul out of you, because you have to put so much out there. You have to be in the midst of peopling. You have to talk to 1,000 people. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the break, but I was like, yes, please. What a great way to basically wrap up my launch is with you.
I'm so happy that you did it, but I'm even happier that you're stopping. I'm a very big fan of women who do too much stopping. So that makes me delighted. I think that's probably the best role model that you can be right now. Except for those of you who aren't doing anything, and we need you to actually do stuff.
We need you to do stuff, right? We need those who are not doing nothing to do something, and we need those of us who do too much to rest.
Put shea butter on my hands right now just to get warmed up for this. Okay, before I have a question I want to launch with, but you talking about how exhausting book tour is, and I know how you can kind of hate your book by the end of it because you're so sick of it and you're sick of telling your own story. And I wanted to ask you, what is the question that people ask you the most, so that I will know not to ask you that, so that you don't have to answer it for the millionth time?
Oh, what is a professional troublemaker? But you know what's funny is, even though everybody asks me that, I still always think it's necessary to talk about it. Yeah. So it's like the question I get the most, but I'm like, it's necessary.
So should we do it? Should we do
let's do it.
Okay, go. Luvvie,
So a troublemaker.
What is a professional troublemaker? I've always wanted to ask you this. This is my burning question. What is a professional troublemaker? And what isn't? Because you also write in your book what a professional troublemaker isn't, which I think is really important as well.
Yeah, I think a professional troublemaker is somebody who is committed to disrupting for the greater good. They're the people who will say and do the hard things, not because they're not afraid, but because they realize it is necessary. They're not just like contrarians. They're not the trolls who put random comments on your captions, or they're not the person in the room who's just making everybody uncomfortable for the sake of it. They're people who are like, I need to do something here. And even though it might rock the boat, it's still important enough for me to do. We all need professional troublemakers in our lives. And I think we all need to be professional troublemakers.
Wow, it sounds like you've never even answered that question before. It just came out so fresh. But if there is one thing that you're going to be talking about again and again, let it be that, because you're right. It's incredibly important. And with that said, I want to start by talking about the Oriki.
Yes.
And essentially what I was doing at the beginning of this was my version of an Oriki for you. You've written your own, but would you take a moment and explain to everybody what that word means and what that concept is and why you started your book with it?
Yeah, so the Oriki is from Yoruba land. I am a Yoruba girl from Nigeria, and it is a tradition that exists to affirm who you are. It ties you to your lineage. It reminds you why you're amazing. And I call it a standing ovation for your spirit. And when you hear an Oriki, you instantly feel this person's power. You're like, oh my God, you sound amazing, right? So when you were reading my bio to me, I was like, yes. Yes. And I think it's important for Orikis to exist because, we spend a lot of time in the world being told why we're not good enough, why we're too much. We get a lot of messages that tell us that we suck or that we don't deserve love and care. So the Oriki is the exact opposite of that. I think it's the antidote.
And you grew up with an incredible champion of a human being who I think all of us who have read your work, we love her, we long for her, we envy you that she was your grandmother, and her presence and her spirit permeates not only everything that you write, I think, but everything that you are and everything that you do in the world. And I don't feel like we can really begin this conversation until you've introduced us to your grandmother. And give us basically your version of the Oriki of her.
Oh my God. My grandmother, Fumilayo Faloyi, was just such a bright spirit. Like, she was this woman who took up space without apology. She allowed herself to be celebrated. And she was so kind, but she took no shit, and she was so loved. My grandmother would take the shirt off her back if you said you wanted it. In fact, the ring that I wear is hers. One day she was wearing it and I was like, oh my God, Grandma, I like it. And she took it off her finger and gave it to me. And I've been wearing it since. It's probably been about 15 years. I don't really take this off. And she was that type of a person who knew that she deserved to exist in the world, did not apologize for herself, cared deeply about everybody else, but also did not allow herself to be subject to disrespect. She was the woman who gave me permission to be who I am today.
Can you tell us that there's an astonishing story that you tell in this book about her young life? And I want, if you don't mind retelling it, first of all, I want to hear it again because I want to see that movie. It's her, what she went through, what she became. I want you to tell it because I feel it's really important. Sometimes when you meet somebody who has that much stature and that much grandeur and that much charisma, her charisma just long after her death, it radiates off the page. It's palpable, know, but people aren't born that way. Like life forges them and they forge themselves. And, can you just explain a little bit about like her very young life and what she went through in order to become that?
Yeah, she was the ultimate troublemaker, and life turned her into that. And because it did, she was actually able to survive. So when my grandmother was about 16, her father was next in line to be king in the village that he was from. He was a teacher. He was an educated man. He was a teacher. They lived in Lagos. Her mom was a homemaker. And actually, her grandmother, his mother, was next in line. But because she was a woman, she couldn't take the crown. So she was like, well, next in line to me is my son, David. So she gives David the crown. So he has to move his family from this bustling city where he's a teacher to this rural area where he now has to assume the duties of being a king, which comes with a lot of things, right? Tradition asks for you to change different things about you. You are basically sent to the throne with all these rituals. So he makes it to the throne. My grandmother's a city girl. The city girl is now a village girl. And within a year, he dies. Not sure how. Within a few months of him dying, his wife dies, my grandmother's mother. So now at 17, she went from the city to the village. She went from a family in a bustling city to now being an orphan and having to take care of her younger sister. So because she's a woman, they just made her a regent. So while they looked for a replacement, because now the line is broken, they had to find a new replacement, she had to be the regent, which means she was basically king for like a few months.
As a 16-year-old orphan.
Yes. Yes.
Take that in, everybody. Like, it's such an astonishing story. Sorry, go ahead. But
it's when I was told, I was like, oh my God. So then she ends up having to move. Who's going to take care of the 16? And I think her little sister was like 13 at that point. So now that they found a new replacement king, and that person is now on the throne, her uncle happens to be a villain. Like, he was just not a good person. So he actually took all her inheritance. Mm-hmm. Everything that was supposed to come to her because her father, the king, died, he takes it in their house and burns their house. So all her memories also gone with her parents. And then he tries to attach her to an older man and give her hand in marriage. This is all happened in like a 2-year span. And my grandmother, instead of saying yes to that, takes her younger sister and runs away in the middle of the night to a city 2 hours away and starts a new life at like 20. And that's where she met my grandfather a year later. That's when she had my mom, I think 10 years after that. And then, yeah.
Yeah, that's who you come from.
That's right. That's the stock I come from, yes.
It explains a lot, Luvvie. I just want to say, it makes sense of a lot of things. When I read that, I'm like, yeah, that tracks. That would be the You had a massive shift in your young life as well, when your family migrated from Nigeria to Chicago. Yeah. And you were a very young girl, and they didn't tell you that you were now living in Chicago. I mean, this is a really traumatic, like, break of existence for a child. And I want to know if you can talk a little bit about how that transformed you and what that did for you, that realization that you'd gone from your own paradise to a place where it's winter 11 months out of the year.
Right. And you know what's interesting is I didn't realize it was trauma until I started therapy.
Yeah.
4 years ago. I would have never called it trauma. And I was like, oh, that's what that was. Oh, I just thought it was a thing. Okay, I just thought it was a thing. I didn't even have the language. Yeah, like moving to the U.S. when I was 9 was something I didn't know we were doing, because we visited the U.S. before. We'd come on vacation. We'd come for 2 weeks, head back home. So when we were coming, I just thought it was another 2-week vacation. And I got enrolled in school, and I was like, hold up, wait a minute. School, that means we're staying. Yeah, we're staying. And I'm like, oh my, how come nobody tells the baby? Because I'm the baby of the family.
Nobody ever tells the baby anything.
Nobody ever tells the baby. And I was like, yo, guys, come on. So the first thing I thought about when I was like, oh my God, we're staying, is that I didn't get a chance to say bye to my best friend, who I'd been best friends with since I was 1. Because I started school at 1. I started reading at 3. And we were like inseparable. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't get a chance to say bye to her. And I remember somebody was going back to Nigeria, and I gave them an envelope with a dollar bill in it and a note for her. And I said, give this to her when you see her. Because I was not, I couldn't call her. I didn't know her number. In Nigeria, we didn't even have each other's numbers. I just saw her in school every day. So I literally sent a package with somebody. It was like, give this to Tommy. Make sure she gets this. And he was like, I wrote a note in there, like, yeah. So being a new girl in this place where, yeah, most people didn't look like me. My name was different. The way I spoke was different for the first time ever. I had never experienced feeling different until I was 9, until I walked into that classroom and the teacher goes, introduce yourself. And I was like, and me, I instantly knew that who I was not going to be welcome in that room, in terms of like being this full Nigerian girl whose name was Ifeoluwa, which means God's love. I was like, oh no, I can't use that name here. Then I'm going to be able to pronounce it. So I was like, my name is Luvvie, which is something that my aunt called me sometimes as a nickname, as like when she wants to joke with me. And I was like, my name is Luvvie. Well, of course I said it with full Nigerian accent. And yeah, I sat down and I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. And I sat there and I listened to how my classmates spoke. And I was like, I can speak like that. I could do that. And at lunchtime, when I brought my jollof rice, they were like, what is that? I was like, jollof rice. And they're like, what is that? And I was like, my food. So everything I did was different. When I wanted to ask for a pen, I asked for a biro. In Nigeria, we call pens biro. So they were like, biro? And I was like, okay,
that's not the word that you should use for that. So I like then I stopped talking for a bit and I just listened in class. I would just be like, okay, let me just watch what they're saying and see how it's different from what I'm saying and adjust what I'm saying. And kids adapt. So I made friends. I would get teased for my Africanness, which is funny because the kids and me, I'm so funny because I'm like, if you're going to make a joke, make it make sense. So they would make jokes that's like Jamaican jokes. And I'm like, I'm not even Jamaican. I'm African. So at least make the joke make sense. So here I am being like, that doesn't even make any sense. I don't understand why you're even using that.
I love that you're correcting people's bullying.
I totally was like, that makes no sense. I'm not even Jamaican. Like, I couldn't even help myself. I was like, yo, if you're going to do it right. Come on. So.
Oh, man. You know what I think is so amazing about that? My partner, Rhea, was Syrian. And she came to Detroit when she was 8 years old. And she has exactly the same story of just the elasticity of a kid's brain to be like, okay, this is no longer correct. She did the same thing. This is no longer my name. This is my name now.
Yep.
And she said she remembered and she didn't speak English, so she had to catch up really fast. But like,
wow.
And she's like, I will not have an accent, you know? And she said she used to sit in front of the mirror and just practice formulating words with an American accent so that within 6 months, she, having dropped down in this country, could speak like an American kid. And there's something that's so astonishing about that ability, but at the same time, it came for her with a really traumatic split, you know, where in her sense, part of the split was she was never quite fit in anywhere again because she was too American to be Syrian, but she was too Syrian to be American. She was the youngest in the family, so she was the most American, so she kind of didn't fit in with the family. And I wondered if you had that experience in your life too, of this division of like too Nigerian to be from Chicago to be Nigerian, you know, how's your family see you? Like it can create a sense of a person being a little bit displaced
yeah. Well, what's interesting is I did live two lives in that. Okay, I got back home. I went by my Yoruba name. Was eating my pounded yam and egusi. I was going to a Nigerian church, so every Sunday I was like in Nigerian culture for 4 to 5 hours because Nigerians be in church all day long. It's a full day affair. So it's interesting. Like I would go to school and be this one person and come home and be right back to where I come from. My mom speaks Yoruba to us. Like I was speaking Yoruba to my siblings, and then it switched to us speaking mostly English to each other. But yeah, so that actually allowed me to maintain my feet because I wasn't going home and all of a sudden I'm now this American girl. No, I was right back to Nigeria. But it was different because of the fact that like we went from living in a house in Nigeria that had multiple bedrooms to like lived in like a 1-bedroom apartment. It's like 4 of us. So that was a shift, but it's, again, to the point of not realizing it's trauma until after the fact.
Yeah.
When your life has one period that's like before immigration, after immigration, like BIPAI, like where you can see the exact split in when you stop being one person and started taking on another persona, it does absolutely shift something in you. But to your point, the elasticity of kids, it's mind-boggling. I lost my accent. For sure, I didn't have it before I started high school. You know, I fit in every way. But on every first day of school, I would go early and go to every class and tell my teachers not to use my first name.
Wow.
And I'd say, hey, mark that off on your list. Here's my actual name that I go by. Because I never wanted them to even introduce my Yoruba name to the class. Because people would be like, oh, say that again. I'd be like, nope, not interested in teaching you. Like, nope, that is something that you don't have access to. And it was a protective measure that I took for myself to be like, now I have a sacred space that I was not allowing them to touch.
That's what I wanted to talk about with that, is you have a whole section of the book about boundaries, and I wanted to get in it because it's so important. It's so important for women, and you speak about it so well. And it seems like you've had pretty airtight boundaries your entire life, but I'm sure that you've also learned how to have them, how to create them, how to maintain them, how to sustain them. But the way that you talk about the fact you write your given name in the book at one point, and then in a footnote you say, "This is not for you to pronounce." Like, to the reader. Like, it's like a boundary. I've never seen anybody set a boundary on the fucking page with the reader saying, I'm going to show you what my name is, but this is not for you to sound out. This is not for you to pronounce. This is only for the people who love me nearly and dearly. You don't get to have this. And I thought, she knows exactly what is sacred. And one of the things that I always want to convey to women is that we think of boundaries, and I think part of the reason it can scare us is that we think of them as these very hard, fierce, like seawalls, you know, but I think that there's what it is. It's a circle that you draw around what is sacred, and you stand in the middle. You better be standing in the middle of that circle. The center of that sacred circle had best be you. If you're not in the center of a circle of what is sacred, you're gonna have a very troubling time in life. And then you stand in the middle of that circle, and then you choose who gets to come how close, you know.
Yes.
And you putting your name and saying, like, my name is, I mean, your name is about being a gift from God. It's like, your name is sacred. You get to choose who even gets to have it in their mouth or on the page, you know? And I was like, God, I love that you model that, you know? And I love that you see it as it's holy.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had forgotten I even put that footnote in there. That's hilarious. I completely, but you know why I did it? So in my first book is when I first introduced my first name to people. And my editor, my first draft of my first book, I actually didn't put it in there. That's how protective I was, because I was like, if I'm even telling people what it is, they're going to want to use it. So in doing it, I found that after my first book, some people who read the book would hit me up on social with my given name. And I'd be like, and I was like, yikes, don't do that ever, God. And even a couple of months ago, somebody was still doing it, who would like message me and be like, and use my given name. And it felt like such an intrusion. So it's hilarious that I put it in this footnotes, because I think I first saw the fact that when people will know the first name, they'll think they have access to it. And I was like, let me just make it clear. No, you don't. And I know how somebody met me, or what stage of my life that they met me in based on the name they called me.
Right.
Like, my name is a timeline. This is actually the essay that I wrote in the Brene Brown and Tarana Burke anthology. It's all about how my names have shifted based on my life. Yeah. And yeah, like the boundaries that we draw about ourselves, our names are absolutely that. You know, there are a lot of us who have nicknames that only family will call us.
Yeah.
Right. And just because somebody might know, oh, that's your nickname, does not mean you have access to it. So that's why you have to honor. And I think names are such a big piece, because our names, like, they are the things that we are, which is why we have to respect what people say. I want to be called this, whether it's the giving name, whether it's a nickname, whether it's a new name they came up with. Honoring somebody's name choice is a big piece of respect. Agreed. That people have to be able to double down on. But a lot of us who grew up with harder names to pronounce, like, even though no one had access to my first name, there's Ajayi, well, I'll just add it Jones, but there's Ajayi, which I spent my whole life correcting people on. Like, whole life. And it's something that I'm so sensitive about, because I'm like, my name is actually not hard. It's not
Schwarzenegger, which no one has problems with.
That's what I'm saying. How do y'all say Schwarzenegger, but you can't say Ajayi? Like, they see Ajayi and instantly go, oh no, that's hard. I'm not gonna be able to pronounce it. So then
you guys are all walking around very happily saying Daenerys Targaryen about your favorite show. You can't say it.
You say it about Tchaikovsky, okay? Tchaikovsky is all types of consonants. They see Ajayi's 5 letters and they freak out. They'd be like, AH, AJ, Ajayi, Ajaya. And I'm just like, listen, take the burden off my name. Take the difficulty that you've ascribed to it off it. And it literally is as it is spelled, Ajayi. And I still get people being like, oh man. So when I got married, I knew that I was going to keep Ajayi even if I took Jones, because I had spent all this time teaching people how to say it. You're not going to stop having to say it now.
Yeah, you earned it.
Like, and I really wanted it to represent, like, for those of us who have spent our lives, who don't see our names on the cups, you know, who don't see our names on the keychains, those of us who spent all our lives trying to shape shift based on, like, making other people comfortable to see our fullness and be able to show up in it. Those of us who've been told, do you have a nickname that you want to go by? Or, I don't know, this is hard. I wanted that name to stay and be on a New York Times bestselling book. Now it's on 2. So a girl somewhere whose name is also tough to pronounce says, no, they owe me the correct pronunciation for this. And they must do the labor to get it right.
Luvvie, you and I share a philosophy that I don't often hear people say in the world of inspiration or motivation. We mutually do not believe in the concept of fearlessness. And
yes.
And in fact, I spend a lot of time trying to undo what I think is the damage that's been caused to people by that word and by the assumption that you're supposed to be fearless.
Yes.
So I was wondering if you could just pick up on that idea, because you speak about it so brilliantly. I was sort of air pumping in the book as I was reading you talk about that, because I know we're on the same page there.
Yes, I think fearlessness has been weaponized because we've heard it so much. People now feel shame for being afraid. People feel like they're somehow wrong for being like, yikes, for feeling those moments where your blood might pump fast, or when your heart might be going pitter-patter, or when you're just like, I don't know if I want to do this. That word fearless has attached so much guilt to what is a natural human emotion, fear. Like, fear exists. It is the most visceral thing next to love and joy. Like, fear exists biologically to keep us safe, right? Like, it is there for a purpose. Nobody's fearless. And if you are fearless, where you are afraid of nothing, it's actually considered a psychological disorder. Like, that actually means something is wrong in your brain if you are like, I fear nothing. I walk without any doubts, any anxiety. That's not real. So that's why I call this the Fear Fighter Manual, not the Fearless Manual. Because fear exists for us to fight it, right? For us to know the moments when it is keeping us safe and the moments when it is actually holding us down. And most of the time, it's actually holding us down.
Speak about the TED Talk. First of all, everybody, if you're not among the millions of people who have watched Luvvie's TED Talk, please remedy that after you've watched this. But the next thing that you're going to do after you watch this interview is you're going to go watch her TED Talk. I saw that before I knew you and before I knew who you were. First of all, it's hard for me to imagine anybody's ever looked better giving a TED Talk. Like, can we just talk about the yellow blazer and the wingtips? I mean, oh my God. Secondly, setting that aside, and I hate to because it's important.
I'll tell you about the yellow blazer. Mm-hmm.
We have to get back to the yellow blazer. But setting that aside, it genuinely surprised me. And I don't know why, because I shouldn't be surprised at people's humanity. But it genuinely surprised me to learn of the fact that you almost turned that down because of fear and a sense of maybe not belonging there. And I wonder if you could speak about that, because I want that to dovetail into a conversation about belonging and about who belongs where, and about claiming your stage and claiming your voice. So, it's so easy to look at you because you move through the world with such incredible self-confidence and what looks like an endless reservoir of comfort in yourself and who you are, that I think it's helpful for people to see, like, no, you were really traumatized by the idea of giving a TED Talk, as was I. It's not an easy thing to do. It's a really scary thing to do. So if you could just tell that story, I think it would be great for everybody. And she tells it in the book too, but tell it in your own words.
So I had done 2 TEDx talks before TED Talk, but what's funny is I don't even think TED saw my TEDx talks. It was a year after, actually it was 6 months after my first book came out, after I'm Judging You came out. Pat Mitchell reached out to me. I think I was even one of the first people they reached out to for TED Women to speak. It was about May 2017. And I instantly was like, I can't do that. The excuse I had in my head was I was on a 10-city speaking tour that year with Glennon and Abby in that fall. I had a total of 50 speaking engagements that year. 50. None of them in Chicago, keep in mind. None of them in Chicago. So I was like, oh, no, that can't happen. A TED Talk, the year that I have 50 talks, knowing that TED insists that you give energy to them. Like, they get you a coach. They get you a all types of rehearsals, and they read your script, they change it, they make you edit it 4 times if they need to. So I instantly was like, yikes, I don't even have the capacity to handle that. And then they came back again a few months later and was like, hey, come do a panel at TED because we're going to do a together panel. And I was like, oh, I can't. Now I'm really booked for the day of TED, so I can't even come. 3 weeks before TED, I realized that the conference that I was emceeing and keynoting, I actually didn't have to be there till November 2nd. And TED was November 1st. So I was like, ooh, so you know what? Maybe I can come for a day and cheer on my friends who are speaking and just be another friendly face in the audience that's clapping hard for everybody. And Pat Mitchell was like, if you can come, I want you to take the stage. And I was like, what? Madness, because 3 weeks before is nuts. Like, the program is already set. Pat was like, we can have you come. And I was like, I have to leave New Orleans on the last flight out to New York that night at 8 p.m. She goes, we'll just make you opening speaker. I was like, what is happening here? She won't let me say no. She's making me opening speaker of the 3-day conference. And I'm the person who's the last to even be considered sliding in. That's nuts. So I called my friend Unique Jones Gibson. And I was like, I had written up a 3-paragraph email to Pat declining once again. And the email was all about like, Pat, thank you so much for thinking about me. I would love to take the TED stage. I'm just not ready yet. Please think about me for the next one.
This is such a thing that women do, by the way. I've written like 7-page apologies for not being able to do so. Like, we have to stop. You can just say no. But anyway, go ahead.
3 paragraphs of me saying no. 3.
You can just say no, thanks. But anyway, go ahead.
I was about to press send and something was like, call Unique. And I called Unique and I said, so here's what's happening. TED is in 3 weeks. They want me to be opening speaker. Everybody else has already had a coach. Everybody has already had their talk rehearsed.
Yep.
I would need to, in between, I still had 6 more speaking engagements before TED even happened. I was like, in between all my talks, I'd have to like rehearse this new talk that I have to come up with and all this stuff. And I'm afraid that I'm going to
just so you guys know, people prepare their TED Talks for literally a year. You know, like it is like it's the Olympics of public speaking. Like you don't just write something on the airplane on your way to, you know, like you
unless you're me. And I literally was like, I'm afraid that I'm going to get on the stage and I'm going to bomb. I'm afraid that because I don't have the prep time that I need, I will basically kill this opportunity in the worst way. And Unique said to me, everybody ain't you. She was like, you've been on a stage every 3 days. You've been speaking for the last 7 years. That's been your coaching. She was like, I need you to get off my phone and go write this talk. And she hangs up on me. She doesn't even give me a chance to be like, but wait. She literally was like, get off my phone, go write this talk and kill it in the best way. Good night. And hangs up. And I was like, well, okay. And I deleted the email to Pat. And the next morning on the way to the airport, I wrote the TED Talk and sent it to them as the car was pulling up to drop me off.
Come on.
And 45 minutes. I was in this ride for 45 minutes. And I was like, all right, fine. Let me put this thing together. If they say it sucks, I'll understand and they can kick me out. I literally was like, if they say it's terrible, I'll be like, you right. And I sent this talk off. I landed in whatever city I was going, and I had an email from them being like, we love it. We actually only have 1 edit. So, 3 weeks later, I get to New Orleans. I memorized the talk the night before. I actually scrapped the talk, half of it, that night before. Rewrote it, sent it to them when I was on the way to the airport to go to New Orleans, because I was only going to be there for 12 hours. And was like, oh, I just made a few changes. Here you go. I rehearsed 1 time on stage while still holding my iPad and still deleting slides, being like, I don't need that one. Delete that one too.
This is making me, I'm starting to get like hives.
No, literally.
Oh my God. I'm getting like flush marks on my own chest. Like, this is not safe. This is not okay.
4 hours before I took the stage, I'm still deleting slides. I was like, delete that one, delete that one. I don't need that anymore. Okay, make that the second one. Like, on the stage. This is 4 hours before I'm holding this iPad. And I still didn't have it memorized, actually, 4 hours before. I was still like reading off the iPad, like, and they're like, we love it. This is great. And I was like, oh my God. So 6 o'clock came, Deborah Cox sang, and then I come on stage, and the first thing that happens is my mic falls off my pocket. My mic falls off the back pocket. So the sound guy has to come back on stage and re-mic me. And I'm like, well, hi, everybody. And everybody's laughing because I was like, well, shit, okay, that's how we getting started? Let's do it.
That was probably a great blessing in a way, right? To just sort of naturalize the moment.
It was. Yeah. Like, I was like, how y'all doing? Y'all are looking good. And the guys adjusted his mic pack. And then I gave this talk. And I don't know where it came from, but it felt like an out-of-body experience because the talk that I did not have memorized 4 hours before came out of my body like I had given it 15 times, 20 times, rehearsed it for months. Like it flowed. There were no ums. There was no editing magic to what you see on the TED Talk right now. What you see is the talk I gave. There was no, oh, we got to cut this line out because she didn't do this. What y'all saw is what I did on that stage. And the moment I said thank you, because I had a flight to catch, I ran off the stage. I was like, thank you. And then the stage manager stops me, turns me around and says, I need you to see the standing ovation that you're getting. And he tells me to go back on stage, and the whole room is on his feet, and I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, thank you guys so much. And then I jump off stage again, and Pat Mitchell goes, that was incredible. Your luggage is in the car. Safe travels. And I jump in the car, and I go to the airport. I am off by 7. I land in New York. And a week later, they emailed and said, we want to feature your talk first, December 1st. And 1 million views in 1 month. Now it's close to 6 million views. And I almost didn't do this talk that has transformed my life, that has transformed a lot of people's lives, because I was afraid. And I felt convicted to talk about this and dig deeper into how fear really does serve as a self-fulfilling prophecy for the audacious lives that we want to live. Like how we cannot listen to it, we cannot let it be the decision maker for us. It cannot be the thing that stops us from doing or saying what we're purposed to do, because you never know all the beauty that's waiting for you. If you listen to that voice that's telling you you're not ready, you can't do it, your voice is not necessary, we all lose in the moments when we make decisions based on fear.
That's such an extraordinary story, Luvvie. And I think I felt it in my body because I've given a couple TED Talks, and it's not a pleasant experience. Just want to let everybody know, it's terrifying, and they don't do anything to take away your terror. They spend a whole lot of time letting you know in a million different ways that they're pretty sure you're going to fuck it up. They take it so seriously, and so it's a huge pressure situation. And what I felt when I was listening to you give that talk was, oh, she's just taking dictation from God here. You know, this is channeling, this is and now that I know the full backstory, that you were writing it in the moments leading up to it, it's oh no, this is you're just being, there's times in your life where you just become an antenna, and where you really are. It's not about you. It's not about your fear. It's not you're being used for a higher purpose. And and when that happens, it just works. It's more God, less Luvvie. It's just I just need you to put your yellow blazer on and go out there, and then God will come through you.
That's it. But Elizabeth, another piece of that story that's not in the book is the fact that when I gave that talk, I had on $65,000 worth of jewelry.
Oh, I have that on right now.
And let me tell you why that was such an important piece of that talk. And
why were you wearing? Wait a minute.
Yes.
Why were you?
I want you to go back and watch the talk and just watch my jewelry. Just watch my jewelry, and you'll start seeing bam, bam, bam. You would just be like, oh. So let me tell you how that, and I don't know, I cut it out the book because I was like, it's not necessary. But so the week before my TED Talk, actually the weekend, so I gave the talk on a Wednesday. On Sunday, I was actually in New York for the weekend with a friend of mine, a really close friend of mine, who also happens to be a jeweler. So I just mentioned it on the side. I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this TED Talk. She's like, a TED Talk? When? I was like, oh, on Wednesday. She was like, what are you wearing? And I was like, well, because TED uses the color red for everything. That is my favorite color. I'm going to wear a color that will look really good next to the red. So that's how I decided on the yellow blazer. I was like, let me do yellow because if I wore red, I'd blend in with the TED sign. So I was like, I got to wear yellow.
Yep.
So she goes, no, but like, what are you wearing? Like, what is your jewelry? I was like, oh, I just wear my hoops and my regular studs. And she was like, oh, no. She was like, you are going on this grand stage. I need you to look elevated. And I was like, and I'm very simple. Like, I'm just like, okay. And she goes in, comes back out, and lays out this jewelry in front of me. She was like, you're wearing yellow, and what color are your pants? And I was like, oh, I'm going to do all black. She was like, okay. She pulls out these diamonds, this diamond earring. She pulls out diamond ring. She pulled out a bracelet and a necklace. I'm freaking out because I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to ask the question I want to ask, which is like, what is all of this worth? But I was like, I'm not going to do it. But she was like, here's what I need you to do. She said, the earrings, put it on now. Don't take it off until you're done with the TED Talk. I said, you want me to wear these earrings now? She's like, because you can't travel with this in your pocket. Like, it can't just be in your bag. I was like, oh my gosh. So she made me put on the earrings. She was like, okay. And she gave me the rest of the stuff. So when I had to go back to New York right after the talk for the conference, I called her immediately. I said, I'm in New York. Come get these from me.
Take these out of my ears.
So when she comes to get them from me, I go, okay, so now can you tell me how much this jewelry was worth? She goes, well, those earrings are black diamonds with white diamonds around them. They're about $30,000. The ring I wore was stacked 4. She was like, that's about 10,000. She was like, your necklace, which actually didn't even show because I had on a high neck thing, was like these gray diamonds, was like another 10. I was just like, holy smokes. First of all, you trusted me with this stuff. That's one that was like, whoa. But the most important piece of that is that surround yourself with people who see you bigger than you see yourself.
Yeah.
Because she was like, we need to make sure you're elevated. I was like, I'm fine with my little studs. And she was like, no. You are now on this grand stage.
That
right. Means you need to show up somewhat different. And this is going to be a video that lives for how long? So what she did in that moment that I didn't realize I needed, like her loaning me that elevation.
Yeah.
Also now allows people to watch that video and be like, okay, so she's not playing. Even though it's a shallow thing, it allows
but you feel it. Dustin Hoffman said that 90% of getting into character is the right costume.
Yes.
You know, like he's like when he was in was Midnight Cowboy. He said as soon as he found that leather jacket, that scuzzy leather jacket, he became Ratso Rizzo. You know, like he put it on and it's like, oh, this is easy. All I have to do is wear this and this is who I am.
Yes.
You knew what you had on, you know, like, and that it means something. Like,
yeah,
it's a way to, this is why I always tell people if they're in a creative block, I've got this in Big Magic where I write about get dressed up, you know, like it makes me mental when people say my life's dream is to have a job where I can be at home in my pajamas all the time. I'm like, what do you think that's telling your work? You know, like honor your work by showing up, like wash your hair, take that, you all hear me right now? All of you, take that fucking scrunchie out of your hair right now. Your life will never change as long as you have that scrunchie in your hair and those pajama bottoms on at 2:30 in the afternoon. Come on. There's like a thing that it does. Your grandmother knew this by the way that she dressed when you talked about her 61st birthday party and all gold and like 7 days of celebration. It's like, no, this is my worth. You know, this is my worth.
And sometimes you got to fake it. Like, so I was like, I don't care. I said, even if I said trash on that stage, y'all would be like, she looked good. She looked good. Okay? At least she looked good. So whatever that thing is, your security blanket, it might not be diamonds. It might not be something, but like your security blanket needs to stay with you. So I have a few. My red lipstick is one of them.
Yep.
If I put on my red lipstick, I might have on sweatpants, which I actually do have on. But if I put on red lipstick, I know it's time for me to show up.
Yeah.
Right? If I have on a hat of choice, I'm like, I know I'm fly, even though my hair is not combed. Okay? Right? So there are things that you can put in place. And then I also had Judgy Pop on my chest. I had my Judgy Pop pin on my chest. So walk in the room with the things that you have to walk in. Don't make it feel like, oh, I'm being shallow. Be shallow. We need it. Wear some cute shoes. So for me, shoes are my other security blanket. I'm like, whether or not you like what I'm saying, my shoes gonna be fly.
I hear you. I was at a conference once where I got so blindsided. It was like at this weird conference in Italy, and they had a guy get on stage after me who was a professor to refute me. And I was like, wait, no one told me this was happening. Like, he came on to basically slam my work. And I was like, I was not made aware of this. But I remember sitting in the front row, and I had these Miu Miu ballet slippers on, and they had these bright, shiny diamonds. And I thought, I'm just going to focus on my shoes because they're good.
So I don't jump on the stage and snatch you off it.
I have the best shoes on in this entire room, and that's why it's going to be good. And the sense, I was going to tell you this story too. What you remind me of is I went on the Oprah Winfrey tour a couple of years ago, and that's like a whole nother level of stadium tour.
That's new levels.
20,000 people, Oprah sitting in the front audience, 45-minute talk where you just are there to hold that basketball stadium, while Oprah is watching you to be like, these are my people, here you go. I'm giving them for 45 minutes, inspire them. And I'm, pretty comfortable public speaking at this point, but I had an experience that was so incredible. I was standing backstage. I've never had such a physiological reaction to fear as I had in that moment. They were doing, and like your face is on the Jumbotrons. I mean, it's just so insane, and like this big music is drumming and they're doing this introduction, and my knees I'd heard about knee knocking fear. My legs were shaking so much, my knees were knocking. And I was like, this is visible. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to walk out, my legs are visibly shaking. And I'd never had something where I felt like I was so out of control of my body, and,
Yep.
And I was standing back there and I'm like, what am I going to do? And I had this thought, and it went just like this. And it was like, it was a download from God, it was a download from something that just came and said, there are moments in a woman's life where the best gift that she can give, and it's all women in that audience, right? 20,000 women. There are moments in a woman's life where the very best gift that she can give to another woman as an act of love is to let them see your vulnerability.
Yes.
Not today, motherfuckers. Not today, motherfuckers. This is not that day. You go out there right now and you show them what it looks like to stand where you deserve to be on a stage, in a platform where you were invited. And if you trust Oprah and she trusts you, then you're supposed to be here, Yes. And it's like, it just dropped out. Like all of that stuff just dropped out, because there are times where the greatest gift that we can give to each other as women is to share our vulnerability. And then there are times where it's like, no, now I want to show you what it looks like when I own everything that I am and everything that I've earned, and I take my space on the stage where I belong. And there's a lot of that in here.
I wrote this book and I didn't have the language for it so succinctly until probably halfway through my press tour. I realized that I wanted to constantly, with my work, with this book, with how I show up in the world, I want to constantly loan people courage.
Yeah.
I want them to think about my stories and my words in the moments when they want to do the thing that feels too big, when they want to ask for the raise, or they want to have that tough conversation. They want to stand in front of the 20,000 people and they're not sure if they can handle it. Like I want me to loan everybody courage and make them do something they might not have done, but they're worthy of, like we're so constantly beat down in this world, like especially as women. People want us to walk with humility, which often they're asking us to be self-deprecating to a fault, which I don't subscribe to. People want us to self-sacrifice for the greater good. No. Be courageous for you first, for the greater good, right? And then people then will say like, well, don't make money because that means you're being greedy. No. I want to make money so then I can now give it away to people who need it. So I can now hire more women onto my team. My team is all women. So yeah, that's what I want to do for those moments, the 20,000 moments. Because I know what it feels like. For my TED Talk, I was sweating buckets. Like I remember standing backstage being like, oh my God, do I have this memorized? Oh my God, this is the biggest talk of my career yet. Oh my God, do I have it? And just like you said, a dictation from God, walking on that stage, my legs stopped shaking.
Yeah.
When I stepped on that red carpet, that red rug, my legs stopped shaking.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then I gave the talk of a lifetime. And then here we are 3.5 years later, having this conversation. Everything about that talk led me to where I am today, to the fact that I had called this book Professional Troublemaker, the Fear Fighter Manual, and then went back and watched my talk and realized my first 4 words in the talk is, I'm a professional troublemaker. I didn't realize that until after the book was already titled.
Right.
So those moments, those big moments that we've all said no to, the next big one, please say yes.
Agreed. Please say yes.
Imagine being in an online space where people's foolishness doesn't make you want to fight the air. That might sound impossible with your current choices for social media, but I was sick of wading through nonsense to find like-minded people, so I created my online community. And if you're the kind of person who is striving to be a professional troublemaker and fight fear, we need you to join us in that community because you need people to cheer you on. Love Nation is my online community and app that is a safe space in a dumpster fire world. It's the place for the most thoughtful, funny, most chill-deficient people on these interwebs. We're a community that comes together to make each other better with curated conversations, opportunities to connect, and challenges to help us transform and do better in every area of our lives. So, I want you to come in there, join us, become a citizen of Love Nation. So go to lovenation.com, LUVVNATION. Download the app in the App Store or on your Android. It's on iOS and Android. And come on through. All right, back to the podcast.
Let's talk about craft. Let's talk about writing.
Yeah.
This is a book club where I always want to honor the writer and not just the message.
Yes.
You say in this book that it took you until you had a blog for 9 years, a very successful blog, for 9 years before you had the courage to call yourself a writer. Like, what were you doing? What do you think you were actually literally doing during those 9 years?
I would be like,
what is that? Where did that come from? Because I know a lot of people who follow me are writers and don't have the courage to call themselves that, even though it's what they're doing. It's what you're literally doing, and
what you're doing.
And I wanted to know what was the turning point where you finally had the courage to do it, and how has the writing process changed for you from those early days where you were, okay, I'm not going to be a medical student, I'm not going to be working in this marketing field, I'm going to be trying this new thing of blogging. Has your comfort levels changed what's your relationship with writing now? I asked you a lot of questions in that one question. You can pick up any of them that you like.
Oh no, I'll answer all of them. So yeah, it took me 9 years to call myself a writer after I started blogging, because I'd be like, oh, I blog, oh, I have a blog, oh, I write sometimes. That's how I describe myself.
Right.
Because I felt the title of writer was too big for me to wear. I was like, a writer is Toni Morrison. Maya Angelou's a writer. How can I call myself the same thing those icons call themselves? I don't have the right to that. Because I was like, writers are novelists. They are journalists. And I was not that. I was the girl who was sitting behind her computer screen talking about the world as I saw it. I was like, that's not a writer. That's just somebody with a blog. That idea that a title is too big for us to wear. It's like wearing somebody's coat. It's because we don't know that we are worth it. Like, if we are doing the work, we are writers. If I'm writing every day, I'm a writer. So we're often afraid of taking credit for work we haven't done. And then we're afraid of what comes with the title. Okay, so if I'm a writer, that means I can fail. If I'm a writer, that means, does that mean I have to be serious? If I'm a writer, how do I make money at that? So all the uncertainties that came with that title, I wasn't ready to own, even though I was doing all of it.
Yep.
And it changed when I found myself at the Academy Awards, 2012.
That's a great opening to a sentence, by the way. Like you do.
I found myself
at the Academy Awards.
Found myself.
With your $65,000 worth of jewelry.
I didn't even have, I borrowed a dress. And I was like, okay. So because a Hollywood producer who read my blog reached out to me a few months before the Academy Awards and said, would you like to do press coverage at the awards? I love your perspective about different things that you're seeing. It'd be fun to see how you kind of cover this. And I said, yeah. So I got credentialed for the red carpet and backstage. A lot of journalists, they go home after the red carpet.
Yeah.
I end up backstage eating Wolfgang Puck shrimp and chocolates. Okay? Next to journalists from like CNN. And here I am eating the shrimp and seeing all these journalists typing in and filing reports and me being like, I'll just tweet whenever I feel like it. And my sister texts me and goes, Mom just called me and said she hasn't seen a tweet from you in 20 minutes. Mom knows what Twitter is? And it was the first time my mom acknowledged my career that I didn't even know I had. But mostly it was the fact that I said, my words got me in this room, just like it got everybody else who's in here. And I have spent so much time denying it. I spent so much time doubting it. Why would I not call myself a writer now? Like, look where you have found yourself. But it was because I finally ran out of excuses to not call myself a writer. You don't have to be at the Academy Awards doing press to call yourself a writer. You don't have to have a blog for 9 years to call yourself a writer.
There's no state license to it. It's not even like being a manicurist. You actually get to say it. You don't.
But that's why. That's why we all struggle with when it's time to say it.
Yeah.
Because you're like, there's no credential that says I am this.
Yeah.
There's nothing that shows that without a reasonable doubt, I can say I am this title. But I think that should also free us to use it. You know, if you are somebody who's been writing every day, who wakes up thinking about words, who processes things like in that way, you are a writer and you deserve to call yourself a writer. If you've taken beautiful portraits and you find value and you realize this is your gift, you're a photographer. So, and I think one of the things that we do when we don't own these titles is we don't honor our gifts. We don't honor and give credit to the gift we have, because I understand that I am a gifted writer, but this gift was given to me before I showed up here.
Yeah.
And when I finally said I am a writer, everything I was afraid of was moved out the way. It was like God and the universe were like, we were just waiting for you to say this thing so we can give you what we had for you. Mm. So we have to make sure we don't spend enough time, we don't spend all this time doubting the gift that we have because we don't think we're ready yet. Just own it, and then the jacket will fit you eventually. Even if it feels big right now, just try it on. The jacket will fit in a bit. You'll go, yeah, I am a writer.
It's all the wrong people who are humble.
That part. And
it's all the wrong people who have self-confidence in the world. You know, it's just true.
So what happens when they both merge? When the right people start having self-confidence and the wrong people start doing the work that they need to do.
Right.
So those of you who are sitting here doubting your work, you're probably the right person who needs to have the confidence, because you spent so much time honing your craft because you always want to get better. That's where imposter syndrome comes in and helps us. Yeah. Right. So you should be confident, and don't think humility, you owe anybody the humility. I don't consider myself humble in the way other people might think. Like, I will tell you in a minute, I'm an amazing writer and a speaker. I wrote a book that is the best work that I've ever done. And I can say that clearly. But my humility comes in knowing that I am part of a legacy of women writers, of women who've broken ceilings so I can be here. I'm part of a legacy of my grandmother who showed me what it's like to be a bold woman without apology. I'm the legacy of the work that my mom did to make sure we came here for the better life that she wanted for us. So my humility is based on the fact that I know that I'm able to be this person and do this work because of the people and the systems that have supported me. So I'm not an amazing speaker and writer by myself. You know, I am a testament of all the mentors who've said my name in rooms that I'm not in, who've been like, have you thought about Luvvie for this? Mm-hmm. You know, so all of that helps me now do the work that I do. So I don't do it alone. That's where my humility comes in. But I need us, especially women, to double down on owning your gifts. Double down on letting people know what the gift is, so they can know, oh, that's where she can help me with my work, or, oh, that's a gap that she can help us fill. We gotta cheerlead ourselves as we're cheerleading everybody else too.
I want to talk about dreaming. You have a chapter of the book called Dream Audaciously, and you say in it that dreaming big is in itself a privilege. Yes. Which I want you to break that down for us, because I think that's a really important thing. But you also write, sometimes we must dream so big that we make people uncomfortable. That is actually when you know you're doing what you should. When you mention something to someone and they gasp, yes, lose your breath on my behalf. Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, I'm really fascinated with this. The idea that I've only recently begun to understand, especially in women's lives, the difference between dreams and fantasy. And one thing that a teacher who I really admire broke down for me and really helped me get this is that if you're raised in a family or a culture where your dreams from the beginning are considered to not have any importance, right? Where dreaming is not allowed to you, where you're just expected to follow a very particular, very narrow path, there's a part of us that has to dream in order to be a healthy human being. Yeah. And what happens is it metastasizes into fantasy. And then you just spend your life, and fantasy is also a way to check out of a very sad reality. And so I just want to be really clear as we're talking about this. There's a really big difference between a life of dreaming and a life of fantasy. When you're in fantasy, you never have to do anything. You know, that's one thing about it. You're just like, tra-la-la, everything's going to change. Somebody's going to come around and save me. You know, someday I'll live in a palace. Like it's just this, you know, there's some, and it often has to do with being rescued externally. You know, there's a fantasy that somebody's going to come and be your hero, that somebody's going to come and solve all your problems, that like you're going to win the lottery, you know, that's so I think I just wanted to start off by just reminding everybody that we're not advocating here for living a life of fantasy, because that's demeaning to your spirit. Yeah. And it also shows a tremendous absence of self-faith, self-worth, and an ability to think that you have any agency at all over your own life. Dreaming is something else. Dreaming is muscular, it's powerful, and it's actually based weirdly with its feet in reality. And it's in a reality of potential, but it's still in reality. And I wanted to just talk about what you mean when you say dream so big that people like lose their breath by it. And when was the first time in your life that you felt like that you were really aiming for that?
That dream versus fantasy thing is a move that I do think people accidentally think having audacious dreams is fantasy automatically. And I love that point you just made. That's what I'm processing right now. I'm like, that's a really good point. Because to live in fantasy is to want impossible things, right? Like impossible things. I want to be able to fly without wings. That's fantasy. Okay, that's fantasy.
I want to have thick hair.
Listen, I want to have a big old giant booty, even though I could get surgery if I wanted that. But also, that's actually not fantasy because it's surgery. But yeah, I think we tend to think that dreaming big could become fantasy very quickly. But that's because we have now weaponized reality. We have created tiny boxes of what's possible so that anything outside the tiny box looks like fantasy. And that's the problem. Anything outside the tiny box. One of the things that I did 2013, you said when's the first time I dreamed big? I'm not sure. But over the years, I would put certain things on Twitter. Just because. I was just like, I want this thing. I'm going to say it out loud. I remember probably 2012, I tweeted, one day I will meet Oprah and she will already know my name. Me and Oprah had been in the room with each other over the years at least 12 times. When I was 9 years old, when I first came to the US, my class actually did a field trip to Harpo Studios. I was chosen as one of 10 people to go. And some of my classmates actually ended up on the show. And after the show, they gave us a tour of the studio. And I remember walking by Oprah, but I didn't introduce myself. I was just like, it's Oprah internally. That was the first time I've ever been in a room with Oprah. But over the years, I've been in multiple rooms with her. The Essence Black Woman in Hollywood. There was one year where she was sitting at a table with Shonda Rhimes. And I was like, I can only introduce myself to one. You know what? I'm going to introduce myself to Shonda right now. Shonda already knows my name. Okay, I'm going to go up to Shonda. So I introduced myself to Shonda. So in 2016, when I got the Super Soul 100 notification and they emailed me, I thought it was fake. I deleted it. And if somebody texted me like, did you see the email? And I was like, oh snap, that was real, for real. Oprah actually knows my name. And we on bet. And she says, hey, Luvvie. And those tweets that I said over the years, it come true. That's a dream that could feel like fantasy if you feel like reality is this small. I didn't know how Oprah was going to know my name. I was just like, one day I will meet her and she will know my name. I didn't know how there was no plan to get there. I think the necessity for dreaming audaciously is to blow the box. It's to blow the box. We live in the small box every single day. And we need to live beyond the box and beyond boxes we can even see right now. And the example I use in the book is of Summit. Summit is wild. And there's a line that I wish I actually put in the book that I'm like, damn it, that was a whole hit. Because the people of Summit were these group of guys who went to this mountain.
Tell everybody what this is, because it's bananas.
It's nuts.
And I didn't know about it like fully until you wrote about it. I'm gonna see.
And the book's fact checkers went back to make sure I wasn't lying. Like, that's why that footnotes exist, because I'm like, just in case y'all think I'm lying, this is fact. So a group of guys invited their friends to a cabin in the mountains for a couple of weekends. They had a great time. They had great conversation, and they went back for 2 more weekends, and they go, man, we really love our cabin retreats that we've been doing. We should buy Powder Mountain, the mountain it's on. When we go on trips and we have an amazing time, we might be like, let me buy the mug that we use for breakfast.
At most, maybe I'll get a condo in this villa someday when I retire.
Like, maybe I'll even buy the mattress I slept on. That was great.
Yeah.
We will think to buy the mattress. They thought to buy a mountain. That is privilege, because they never even had the small box.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, I have never even realized that mountains were for sale. I wouldn't even think of it as a possibility. So the privilege to dream big is actually something that changes everything. The fact that they thought buying a mountain was possible made buying a mountain possible, and they end up buying it for $40 million. But imagine if they never thought the mountain was even possible.
Right.
All we think about, we're dreaming of the mattress. They're dreaming of the mountain because they're white men who've never been told less. That's the line I wish I put in the book. They were dreaming of the mountain.
I have a few questions that I'd love to ask these guys. I have the best margin notes in your book, by the way, because you're so funny. But the line was, how did the conversation about buying the mountain even go? Did anyone laugh at the first person who brought up the idea? Were they high, and on what? When they reached, okay, let's buy the mountain consensus, were they afraid of this idea? Who do you call when you're looking to buy a mountain? You know, all of this, it's like, and you're right, the audacity of unshackled white men is massive. The only way I wish to be more like them is by having the lack of oppression that gives me the freedom, gumption, and unmitigated gall to think it's even possible to own a mountain. Lovey, lovey, lovey.
How do you buy a mountain? I mean, just think about this. I'm literally like, what was the person who said, hey guys, we should try to buy this mountain? And like, what was the response they got? Because imagine if the first response they got was, you've lost your shit, get out of here. Or if their friend was like, I don't know, let's look into it. How it changes us. Also, who's around us, who gives us now extra audacity. The person who goes, we can figure it out. We can just do some research. We'll figure out how to buy a mountain. But we've never been taught that mountains were possible. Meanwhile, for them, they were like, why not try to buy a mountain? That type of audacity comes from lack of oppression. That is freedom from lack of oppression, lack of being told something wasn't possible. People tell us asking for a raise is impossible because we're not going to get it. These people decide to buy a whole mountain. So I just want us to start now dreaming of the mountains. Like, what are the mountains? Not the mattresses. The mattresses is too small. The mountain is where we need to be at. We need to be sitting trying to figure that out. Like, okay, because the world that we live in is actually built by the people who think about the mountains.
I saw, Luvvie, a couple months ago on Instagram, you posted something and you said, I'm not pretending to quote you, but the general idea of it was, and I think it was like you put a cover of the book because the book was in pre-order stage. And you said something like, I want everybody to buy my next New York Times bestselling book now. Like, and I remember being like, wow, like that's really cool. That is really cool because I was raised, you must never say something like that. Like you must never say something like that. And I was like, that's fucking great. And I ordered it, because I was like, I want to be part of that. Like, I didn't feel like it separated you from me. I felt like it connected me into your dream, where I got to plug myself into that and be like, I want to support that. I want to support somebody who I want to support a Black woman who walks through this world and says, this is the next thing that I'm going to do. And it's going to be a New York Times bestseller, just like the last thing I did, hold my earrings. Hold my $30,000 earrings.
Hold my earrings. I got them earrings back for my launch, and I wore them for my book launch. I was going to
say, I hope you got those earrings back. And I think that, when you said you want to lend your courage to people, it's such a generous way to live that way, because every woman who liberates herself from the smallness of the box liberates another.
Yes.
Each one free one. It's not even just each one teach one. It's each one free one.
Each one free one.
And the more that we live that out loud, I joked at the beginning of this conversation that I'm sorry for you guys that I always have to do my learning in public, because I was having trouble with Instagram, and somebody said, we're grateful that you do. I'm grateful that you do your courage in public, because it needs to be seen to be contagious.
Yeah, no, that's big. I mean, for me, so my first book, I remember I told my agent, I said, I want this book to sell 50,000 copies. And he laughed at me. He laughed. He was like, most books don't sell over 5. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but this is the number that I've set for myself. It's 50,000 copies, because it's going to make 50,000 people laugh. It's going to make 50,000 people get their lives together. And he was like, listen, it's still a success even if you don't get 50,000 copies. And I was like, I want 50,000. And book 1, when it crossed the 100,000 mark, I was like,
who's laughing now?
Okay. For book 2, I was like, since I'm saying I want to dream audaciously, 1 million is what I want. I want to loan 1 million people courage. I want 1 million troublemakers to exist because of this book. I want 1 million people to get a raise, 1 million people to have a tough conversation, 1 million people to say, you know what, I'm going to dream of mountains, not just mattresses.
Wow.
1 million people to say, I can walk in a room where my voice is necessary. That's what I want for this. And the number feels wildly audacious. I have no clue how I'm going to get there. I'm just going to put it out there, because part of this whole dreaming audaciously is breaking ourselves out of the boxes that exist around us. The things that tell us that just feels unrealistic. Because that's not fantasy. That's not fantasy. That's just a big dream. And be around the people who say, 1 million, we can do that. Let's figure out how to do that. Not the people who go, I don't know. You want the people who go, we can figure that out. And it doesn't mean you failed if you don't make your number. It just means that the box that you're currently in, you're saying, I want to see beyond this box and see what can happen, because I am no longer in the cage. And I just want us all to be freer. I want us all, even in a world that's constantly telling us not to be, we still have to wish and work as if all of our boxes can be shattered at any given time. And our hope is like, we're shattering boxes so the people who come behind us, they don't have to work this hard. We've worked way too hard to get where we got to. I want my life to make somebody else's easier, where somebody goes, well, Luvvie was here, so therefore, instead of having to work 4 times as hard, now I only have to work twice as hard. Or I only have to work just as hard as the other white dude, as opposed to more, And I think that is the value of the work that we do. And that's why I've respected you for such a long time, Liz, because you've learned out loud. You've been the forever student who's like, I've never called myself the expert. I'm just telling you how I've gone through different phases of my life. And you've loaned people courage in so many moments. Like my 2-week break, I was like, I want like a mini Eat, Pray, Love 2 weeks where I'm just gonna go sit in somebody's garden and just like not care about what's happening, but just like go back inward and figure out what I need for my next season. Like that is because you've modeled some of that too. So that's why I like deeply respect you, your work as a writer, your work as a leader, is you're forever evolving and giving yourself the permission to dream of what's possible for you that might not already exist.
Thanks, Luvvie. That means a lot. Thank you. I'm honored. I was going to say humbled, but we're not doing that.
Honored.
I'm honored. Thank you. And you know what I was going to say? I don't think I've ever shared this publicly, but I'm going to tell you what I'm most proud of as in my work of anything that's ever happened. I am most proud of the fact that there is now a term that is globally understood for what it means when a woman says she needs a break from her life, her marriage, her kids. She needs to reinvent herself, and she's going to go by herself to be alone in a foreign place. There was never a term for that.
Now
that
there is.
didn't exist, right? And now it's like universal shorthand where people will say, I'm having, and they'll say it all the time, I'm having my own little Eat, Pray, Love. I'm giving myself a month of Eat, Pray, Love. Or someone will say, my daughter's gone for the year. She's doing her Eat, Pray, Love. It's become like that's my, I feel like that's my greatest legacy, is to have named that so that people can be like, oh, you can do that?
I'm telling you, it is the best shorthand. What are you doing at the end of April? I'm going to have my Eat, Pray, Love moment in a spa resort somewhere.
Yeah.
And nobody has to ask, what does that mean? Like, everybody
knows what it means. And it means you won't be hearing from me.
That is exactly what it means. And that is the best shorthand.
Yeah.
Ever. For such a big experience, it captured in 3 words, I'm going to Eat, Pray, Love.
It makes me so happy. Oh, Luvvie, you're just so fantastic. There's so many other things I just want to read a couple of my favorite lines that you have. One is that you said, if I were a superhero, I'd be super independent. I don't need anything from anybody. I haven't asked anyone, my mom included, for money since I was 17 years old. And then you discuss how that's actually a shortcoming.
Yes.
That's actually like, and in the way that what we think of as our greatest assets and our greatest strengths, if left unchecked, become the things that prevent us from moving forward. And
yes.
So she's got a whole chapter in the book, you guys, about just learning how to ask for help, how to receive gifts, how to be on the other side. And then this one made me just stop and be like, oh, you just read me so hard. I gasped. You said, generosity also helps us to hide our vulnerability. I was like, oh, have you been reading my journals? Like, it's like, I'm so much more comfortable being just let me be the provider, the giver, that don't then I never have to feel weak. I never have to feel like I owe anybody anything. I get to prove how good I am because of the insecurity I have that I might not be. I just felt like, whew.
So a lot of this book, I wrote this book for me. Like, truly, when I say that, I wrote this book for me, as a reminder for me, because all the things that I talk about are our shortcomings in here are mine, that I'm just like, I need to put these on paper. So then when I face these moments, I go back to read it and go, remember when you said. So when you're saying that, I'm like, girl, I suck at asking for stuff. I hate it. It is because I don't like the idea of being beholden to somebody else. I don't like the idea, and I have a captain save a whole complex. Like, I always love to save. I'm like, that in itself, my therapist was like, what is, that is not for you to, you're not supposed to save a person. I'm like, but I want to help. So that chapter.
Brene Brown always says that her therapist taught her that the expression is not let go and let Brene.
Let go and let Brene. Correct. I'm like, let go and let Luvvie. I got this.
I got this. At best, God and we're coworkers, right? We're peers,
And it's like, whoa, like unpacking that in therapy too. Like, what about us? Yeah. Why is it that we are only feeling good when we're doing? Why is it that we constantly put ourselves on the line and on the hook to do more? Why don't we feel enough by just being? So it's a constant struggle.
My favorite line in the entire book, my face is basically my outside voice. About why you can't lie and why you are unable to hide your facial expressions. Luvvie, you're so good. It's so good.
I'm the worst. Liz, like, I cannot lie because my face was so, if I'm like pissed and you ask me like, are you okay? And I go, yeah, I'm fine. I'll just like a second, yeah, I'm fine. It's like, no, you're not fine. You don't even look fine. Come on, stop it. Like, so I can't even lie. My face just be telling all my business. All my business.
I had a boyfriend who said about me, you have the opposite of poker face. You have like miniature golf face.
Miniature golf face.
Like, you would be the worst spy, like the absolute worst. Another favorite line, as you evolve, you should not let people weaponize the old you against the new you.
Yes. Yes. People love reminding us of who we used to be, of our old shortcomings. So you're like, okay, so if I grow, but you don't recognize my growth, why did I grow?
Yeah, you have to remind people sometimes sometimes you have to remind people of where you came from, and other times you have to remind them of where you got to.
That part.
You know?
I always tell people that they see Luvvie now. I'm the very much calmer version of myself. Because old me would let you have it for way less. I'd be like, listen, don't forget my sharp tongue. I still remind you where I'm from if you push me enough. Don't get I always tell folks, don't get Yellow Blazer TED Talk Luvvie messed up out here. Don't have her thinking she doesn't have it. I'm not rolling with sharp tongue.
Yeah, just to be clear, the Luvvie that you're getting now is the very gentle, soft version of Luvvie that's happening.
I can let you have it. Don't forget that version, okay? I'm always ready, all right? So I just be like, look, because people see my TED Talk me, they think I'm like this, like super fuzzy. I'm like, listen, I'm also a savage, okay? I will also have the sharp tongue. So when people bring disrespect to my platforms, I'm like, listen, you catch me on the wrong day, I'm gonna let you have it in a very
you know what? We need our friends who are like that too. There's Glennon and I have a thing that we always say to each other. There's a line in there's a movie called The Town with Ben Affleck and Jeremy Renner where they play like Southie Boston gangsters, and they've been friends since they were kids. And there's a scene where Ben Affleck shows up in the middle of the night at Jeremy Renner's apartment and just knocks on the door, and Jeremy's just staring at the TV. Like, they're just thugs, right? And he bursts in and he goes, we got to go hurt some people, and I need you to come with me. Okay. And without even blinking, Jeremy goes, whose car are we going to take?
You know what? That's totally Glennon. That's actually also Glennon, because Glennon be, oh my God, we be ready to go. You need those friends. You need the friends who's like
every time she invites, like, I'm like, it's beyond a yes. It's like, I don't even know who the people are that we're going to fuck up. Yes, I'm going with you. Like,
I'm going.
Question.
Let's go. I think that's friendship. I must be able to fight for you, with you. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the claws will come out, because also I need people to understand that, like, as we are on this journey, we also come with a community of people who are watching our back, who will make sure that, like, we're good. And I think it deters people from coming crazy at me sometimes. They're like, oh, she has crazy people also. You don't want the smoke, okay? You don't want the smoke. And I think people be like, you know, let me respect myself.
Luvvie, I've talked to you till God leaves Chicago, but I'm gonna wrap it up. I want to say a thing, and then I want to ask you to read. I want to leave on your voice and let you, you know, what I think is the most beautifully written piece of the book. But before we get to that, I just want to say how I see you. So when I was writing my novel, The Signature of All Things, part of it is set in the South Pacific in the 19th century, and I did a lot of research on traditional Tahitian culture, and I found out that there was a figure in the community who was called the Raui, R-A-U-I, and this person knew the lineage of every single person in the community, and all the way back to like the beginning of time. And they weren't warriors, but they ran alongside the warriors in battle, and whenever anybody's energy was flagging, they would shout to them who they were. So they would say, you are, you know, and then they'd read their lineage. You are the child and this and the son of this, and you are the grandson of the one who killed the great warrior and this, and you are, and like their job was just that, like a hype man, but also just to go deep, you know, going back to where we started this conversation with the Ariki, this reminder of what you have in you, you know. And I see you as holding that position in your community that you've created online, in your readers, and in the women, myself included, who look to you for courage and inspiration, that you, through the way that you live, you remind us of who we are.
That is beautiful.
So
that is beautiful.
Thank you for that.
No,
and
thank you.
On that note, will you read page 66, and then we will let you go on your Eat, Pray, Love for the next couple weeks.
I still have about a
well
week or two.
Earned.
Right.
Well
I still have a week for my Eat, Pray, Love, but I will come back with even more clarity.
We always do.
That's what I'm saying, right? Mm-hmm. So you want me to read the piece about who we are as women?
Page 66, starting with somewhere along the way.
Yep.
You know, just about women, basically about when women forget who they are.
Somewhere along the way, they told us our glitter was ashes. They told us that what we touched turned to dust, not gold. They convinced us that we bled as punishment, not purpose fulfillment. Somewhere along the way, our magic was minimized. They said we were ordinary, not walking proof of miracles. And we started believing them. We did. We let the world tell us we had to apologize for ourselves. We had to be polite but stern. Sexy but not too sexual. Bosses, but not bossy. Confident, but not cocky. Motherly, but not matronly. We had to hide the rough edges they created in us and be soft, but not fluffy. And Black women, well, we've been told we're the mule when we are the mother of all of this. We are jewels. We are the reason for poems to be written. Sappy love notes with metaphors that seem hyperbolic but are more grounded in truth than you know. Somewhere along the way, we were told we weren't enough when we are truly everything. We are literally life everlasting. We are God's vessel. Science can't explain us. We're magic. And don't let nobody tell you shit. You're made of pixie dust. They just don't know what to do with it.
Luvvie Ajayi Jones, I salute you. I love you. Thank you for honoring us with your words, your presence, and your life.
Liz, I appreciate you for affirming me. The words that you wrote that are on the back of this book, when you said she is a force and a powerhouse, the thunder and the lightning, I was like, oh my God. Your words as a writer has paved the way for me. It has really allowed me to see what's possible, to just live my authenticity and pass on those lessons. And as we go through all of this stuff as these very flawed people and leaders, I'm learning how to carry some of this because I watched how you've done it. So I just want to say thank you. I love you deeply. And I am so glad that we are in community. Like,
me too.
That I can text you. I'm like, look at my life. I can text Liz Gilbert. So thank you. And you chose.
I'm not going to text you for the next few weeks, though. Anybody who knows Luvvie, leave her alone. She needs to like get that source, get it from source, and fill herself up with all that stuff that she then pours out on all of us. And I hope you get a deep rest and a lot of peace and some good food, and that you don't have to answer any questions for a couple weeks. And just know how highly in regard we hold you and always will. So thank you for being part of the Onward Book Club. And we'll see you. We'll see you in Love Nation.
Yes. Love you.
Bye, honey. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
I've been talking about Professional Troublemaker in a lot of different settings since the beginning of the year. And it's so refreshing when I can have a conversation that brings out something from the book that I've never thought of or expressed before in other interviews. And I loved getting the chance to tell the full story of my grandmother and her amazingness. And the piece of our conversation at the end where Liz and I were talking about buying the mountain and having extra gumption that comes from lack of oppression still has me thinking about how I can keep drilling down on that idea. And again, thank you to Elizabeth for normalizing the Eat, Pray, Love experience and cheering me on as I was prepping to go on my Eat, Pray, Luvvie 2 weeks off the grid that I went on recently. Be sure to follow Elizabeth Gilbert on social media. She is at Elizabeth_Gilbert_writer on Instagram and at Gilbert Liz on Twitter. Also, check out the video of our conversation and the other convos Liz has had with Black female authors at elizabethgilbert.com/onward. If you want to join her in the Onward Book Club, just follow Liz for the selections, read the books written by these dope Black women, and join in on some of those live conversations on her Instagram. See you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Professional Troublemaker podcast. If you loved what you heard, make sure you subscribe to Professional Troublemaker in your podcast platform of choice and share it with people. Let them know this is dope. Also, order my namesake book, Professional Troublemaker, the Fear Fighter Manual, anywhere that you buy books. I especially love when you buy it from independent bookstores. So go to professionaltroublemakerbook.com for more, because this book is game-changing, and I'd say that even if I wasn't the one who wrote it. And please make sure you rate this show and leave a comment with a 5-star review, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you choose to listen. Feel free to also share some insights and whatever connected with you on social media. And be sure to tag us. We are at Professional Troublemaker on Instagram. And me, I'm at Luvvie everywhere. Until next time, have the courage to speak your truth and show up as yourself. Create good trouble.